All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Jason and Andrew Show, where we talk about Bitcoin with a primary focus on naming on Bitcoin, Spaces Protocol. Today is Friday, February 13th, 2026. Friday the 13th.
Oh, my God.
Bitcoin block height 936397. Transaction fees 0.6 sats per VByte low priority, 1 sat per VByte medium priority, and 3 sats per VByte high priority. Just over 21,000 unconfirmed transactions in this mempool. Bitcoin USD price 68,791 US pieces of paper. 24-hour high was 69,274, and the 24-hour low was $65,065. So how's it going, Andrew?
Man, I don't know what if to think. That's pretty. It's pretty bearish. I guess we're in a bear slump for sure. But what do they say when you're in a bear slump? It's like, this is the time to be building. Right. You should be building. Not worried about yeah, exactly.
But I don't think we're in a bear market though. Do you? I do not think the 4-year cycle, I think it's broken. I do not think we're going to continue on. And I do not think we're in a bear market. I think we're going up. 2026, I think we're going up and way up. What do you think?
I think I was kind of was leading into saying something last time we spoke, but I kind of, as I often do, wandered off and never got back to it. But I think that what we're seeing now is an unwind of some of the derivative market and contract sort of influences on a lot of things. One of them being Bitcoin. I think you can point to the precious metal markets and say that a lot of the leverage is getting unwound there. And this isn't a macroeconomic show, but all these things kind of affect us, right? So, I'm a big believer in, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Exter's pyramid of how much value is stored in various kind of components of assets.
I've seen it. I've seen the graph.
Yeah, it's always pictured as like an inverted pyramid.
Yeah.
Right. And when you start reading about it and looking at it, it's like, well, most modern versions at the very tippy bottom, which is the very tip of it, they say Bitcoin lives there. And then right above that's gold, and then silver, and then other things like other commodities, copper, oil, stuff like that. But then you get into monies and credits, and then derivatives on derivatives. And it just makes you think, man, and it's really about counterparties, right? Yeah. If all the other people can't fulfill their obligations, then their defaults start cascading. And there's been, if you follow the precious metal markets, the CME and the London Metals Exchange and stuff, there's rumors that they're running out of metal that they can swap out for their contracts. And China's done more import or export restrictions, and everybody's kind of pulling it all in, right? They're this is our stuff, we're going to keep it. And you see Trump's kind of making moves too, to try to secure more nationally based resources. I mean, he's been talking drill baby drill for a long time, but it's I know that they just, he signed a thing about setting up a strategic, I think he called it strategic mineral reserve or something like that. Basically, we got to keep a handle on this stuff. So anyway, there's all these theories about how this is affecting things and how the manipulation and it seemed there was a big shoot up in price, but then it crashed in a day, and it seemed like the metal exchanges kind of had glitches on that day. So I don't know, tinfoil hat stuff, but anyway,
it's a big problem.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's bring it back to Bitcoin, it's like, like you said, the 4-year cycle, a lot of talk about, is it dead? Have the big money movers moved in a way such that it negates that 4-year cycle? We can't really look at it, as a predictor anymore. I don't know which way this goes, but I think the biggest point is just to remind ourselves that Bitcoin is, a bearer asset, right? You hold it, you control it. You're not, unless you have it on Coinbase or Kraken or one of these exchanges, in which case, you just have a ledger entry, right?
True.
It's just like something in their system where they say you've got X amount. Yeah. I don't know if you saw this. There was an exchange, I think, in South Korea, where they were going to like do some promotion thing and like give people some like amount of South Korean currency, and then the person like didn't select the thing right and gave people like thousands of Bitcoin.
Really?
That's awesome. Yeah, and they realized they like billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin to all their exchange members, but then they realized the error and like basically froze everything and said, no, that was a mistake. But evidently some people recognized this and actually extracted their Bitcoin off. Can't get it back. Yeah. So it's like, just goes to show. And they were like, oh, it was a mistake, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, what we call a fat finger mistake, right? Yep. These things just like, you can't, the only way to reverse them is if whoever got it inadvertently says, oh, I realized that it was a mistake. Let me send it back to you. That's like the only recourse that the blockchain recognizes.
We'll send you some cuck bucks, not the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's one of the major inventions of Bitcoin is self-custody in the digital age.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So what else can you self-custody? I think we were touching on this.
Yeah,
like,
we were.
Like, gold. Cryptos. So, okay, I can buy gold. If I have a bar of gold in my hand, it's like, and then I am custodying it. I am holding it. It's in my hand. Mm-hmm. Now somebody can come beat me over the head with a stick and take it, but I still have it. Now, other things that are close but not quite, like land, it's like, yeah, land is great, but, it costs money to maintain unless it's like, pasture land or something like that.
Easily seizable.
But as soon as you go to land, you've got tax consequences, right? Like you have to pay, even if you own it outright, you bought it with cash, it's yours, right? Boom. You still have ongoing obligations to the state to pay taxes on that land. I know that Florida was talking about getting rid of property tax. I don't know if they ever got there.
But even if you own it, though, it's not like you could take it and stick it in your pocket, your piece of land, The ownership is still on a ledger that the local government or somebody keeps track of, and everyone has to agree. What happens if someone comes and says, nah, this is my land. Oh, that's your land, Andrew? No, this is my land, right? Then we have a fight. We call the authorities, all this type of stuff that's involved and needed into allowing ownership. Bitcoin, it's the protocol. We don't need central authorities. We don't need anyone to tell us. Everyone can verify for themselves.
That's right. And even if you own land and you're willing to pay the taxes, which, by the way, if you look at it technically, is a unrealized gain tax, because you owe money on something you haven't sold yet.
What's that? The property tax, right?
Yeah, property tax is a form of unrealized gain, which is like the most unfair type of taxation that you can have. It's like, what do you mean? It's like the potential of my land, you're going to tax me on what it could be worth. And there's other things too, like you've probably heard of eminent domain.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I've got this land here, but we want an off ramp, from the freeway to go through your land. So, we're going to like do a quick like comparison with other kinds of, ranch land, and they say, oh, your land's worth this. So here, we're going to write you a check, and boom, we're done.
It's the same thing with laws. Humans are fickle. Oh, that's your land. We'll allow you to have that land until eminent domain, until we don't allow you because we have this other reason that changed our mind, and now we have to take it over. So Bitcoin
Right.
prevents all of that. Gold kind of does too, but like you said, you could get hit over the head and taken. Bitcoin same way, your keys could get taken, but
Right.
Bitcoin's
And
digital.
and it doesn't protect you in certain ways. So I didn't realize we're going to go this way, but since we're here, let's talk about it. I mean, if I have my seed phrase, because a lot of times Bitcoiners will say, well, if you store your seed phrase in your head or, write it down somewhere that no one else knows about, then it's as safe as it can be. You can walk across borders. Nobody can frisk you and discover it and take it from you, which is not the case with gold. If you carrying a bar of gold, in your backpack, and the border guard might discover it or say, hey, you owe a duty on this property declared. When you're on the airplane and you go into a foreign country, they give you that little, we're going to land here. Here's your little form you have to fill out to declare what you're bringing in. So yeah, all that bullshit. So it's it is valuable. When other people find it valuable, then you become potentially a target of attack. So,
Yep.
just like I can have gold and I can have gold in a safe in my house, which is great. And I know the combination maybe, but if somebody's threatened me and my family at some point, there's if that somebody breaks in and threatens me physically, then, even though I have all that protection, all that sort of self-sovereign sort of mechanism in place, it still may not be enough. I mean, because now we're talking in that moment, I'm valuing my life and my loved one's life versus, rock.
Yeah, but
It's
the thing about
it's
that
in a
is,
box, right?
if they don't know you have it, or if they don't know for sure, you can deny it, deny forever, because
Sure.
even if you give it to them, they might still kill you. So
Right. Which is true. So we're getting into the weeds, but with Bitcoin too, it's this is where they talk about having fake wallets. Have a wallet
yeah,
on a ledger or something with a small amount, and then if this situation comes on then you take it and you say, oh, here's my wallet, and then oh, we thought you were a big bag holder, and there's only a small amount. It's well, I kept meant to buy all that Bitcoin, but I never got around to it, or I had to sell it for something, whatever your deniability story is, right? So yeah, it's while it may not be perfect in every complete aspect, I still feel it's one of the most sound mechanisms that we have available to us. So why are we talking about this? Because spaces and names, if we want to talk about property, start to kind of align with this as well, right?
digital identity.
So digital identity, and we talked, I think, a little bit about in the prior episodes. It's there's domain names, which what we kind of tend to use in cyberspace are in some sense controlled by other entities that are beyond what we can control or might not act in our interests. Hasn't happened so much for the most part yet, but that potential is there. And Spaces Protocol really kind of tries to fit this need of how do we name things and give them a name, and such that that name effectively becomes property, right?
Yeah.
So think of it intellectual property has different aspects, but if you have the patent on something, there's nothing you can kind of hold in your hand, but you have legal protection in certain respects for that invention, right? That patent. And that's worth something. That's that is property in the eyes of the law, in taxation, and that is worth, something that can be valued. Names, in my mind, are similar. That can, you build up brand. I mean, think Nike, Coca-Cola, the things that when you hear their name, you're associating, experience and reputation and trust, potentially, right? So if you think, Wells Fargo, what do you think of? Think of Stagecoach, you think, they're trusted. They're my bank. I go there. I've used them for my whole life, and they've always been there for me. When I needed to get a loan for my house, they were there, and that's that relationship. So that's pretty powerful. That there's a brand there, right? And I think when we look at the Spaces protocol, the thing that we want to really first associate is like, here's names, and they come from kind of nowhere, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But the right to that property of that name is directly stored on Bitcoin, so it can't be changed, right? So that's one of the most important sort of things to think of first when learning about Spaces protocol. It's like
it's a huge
that
thing.
With
the eminent domain, they allow you to keep it until they take it away. Same thing with the DNS, the domain names. They allow you to use it until they take it away. Bitcoin is the ultimate ledger, the ultimate proof that you own something where no one can take it away from you. You see people talking about their kids were born, this was done, at this block height, the business was established at this block height. Bitcoin is going to be the system of record, the system of proof, the timestamp, the data stamp, as long as it's not crazy high. We're in this middle period where we have to figure out how much data is acceptable. Op return is prunable, 83 bytes. Where are we going to go? Where are we going to land with this whole, I don't know if it's like Block Wars 2.0 with the spam wars, I guess they're calling it. People don't like JPEGs and mindless, stupid images on there. You can go down a different route with that. Who's to decide if it's stupid or useful or not? That's another question. But I could see us compromising somewhere in the middle and realizing that putting things on Bitcoin is extremely valuable. Putting too much data on Bitcoin could be dangerous and a potential problem. So, where do we land on that? Somewhere in the middle. Hopefully everyone could be smart enough and we don't get a chain split fork Bitcoin, but we might.
Well, there's potential there, and I think that gets everybody a bit anxious.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that needs to just kind of find its level, and I feel very confident that no matter how it turns out, Spaces protocol is still going to operate and be sound going forward. So we're gonna work on that premise that there's nothing that's going to come out in the near term that's going to be a roadblock to implementing Spaces protocol. No. So
even
maybe we should talk.
Even not.
Yeah.
It's still compatible with Spaces protocol. So I think we're pretty good no matter where the fork goes. But yeah, I'd hate to see a fork, because then half the community goes off into the one chain. It just weakens the network, I think. Weakens the people. Or maybe it strengthens it. Yeah. Maybe it makes it more resilient. It could go either way.
Well, we'll just have to see and see where it goes. But so yeah, we're kind of bouncing around. But one of the things I wanted to just impress is that that self-sovereign, that control, and like how you attain it. What are those qualities? So let's talk more about Spaces. So I'm sure folks that are coming across these videos are probably just interested. Like, you guys keep talking about these other things, but tell me more about Spaces. So maybe I'll share my screen.
Sure.
Here, and we looked at this last time. So this is the main website, spacesprotocol.org, and it's a really good resource for understanding more about Spaces protocol. But I think today what we're going to talk a little bit about is the top level, we commonly call the top level names, and how you go about getting them, what was kind of behind the thought process. Hopefully we're going to have maybe some some guests join us that maybe can add a little more color to this in future episodes. But for now, let's kind of like lay the groundwork, right? So when you, if you go to the Spaces protocol, just to kind of reiterate, it's empowers users with sovereign Bitcoin identity, and this is the important part, anchored securely on the Bitcoin blockchain. And what does that mean? That means that the top level names are actually represented by unspent transaction outputs, UTXOs, that live in specially formed transactions on the blockchain. So there's no going back and changing it once it exists there. And there's some more attributes here, but let's focus on this. So first I'll click on the paper and maybe the docs later. But if you go on the white paper, there's a bit of discussion about the motivations behind it. But you get, if you scroll down here, you get into the thoughts of like, how are these things constructed, and talks a little bit about how this is like similar to Nostr and other things, Bitcoin, where it's controlled through public keys, and a little bit more about some of the background. But let's look at this a little bit, because I think this is where most people's kind of that are unfamiliar with this kind of start getting like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? So the Spaces protocol names themselves are of this form. Stuff to the left of an @ sign, and then stuff to the right of an @ sign. And the @ sign itself was, arbitrary. I'm not part of the core team. Jason's not part of the core team, but we interact with those guys pretty regularly. And I'm not sure why that the @ sign was chosen. It kind of makes it look like an email address without some dot something over here, in which case you wouldn't be able to even distinguish it from an email address. But you needed some separator. I guess they could have used a colon or a tilde or something else. I think it does kind of from just how you read it, Bob at Bitcoin here, is kind of flows, and people, it's a certain amount of familiarity that people have. So the stuff to the right, anything here, and it can be anything. It can be a long or short, but it can't have a dot in it. Can't have weird characters, hyphens in. Well, it can have hyphen. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit, but not all characters are allowable. But it's really not limited by length.
Is there a place where we can find out? So hyphens are allowed? I didn't know that. Special characters?
Well, right. The CUNY codes have don't they have hyphens?
But they don't show as hyphens. So they're showing as
but I
emojis.
think. Right, but that's an interpretation of the XN -- code.
Okay, so dashes
we're talking about.
I wonder if there's a list. Is there a list you know of anywhere?
I think I remember seeing it somewhere. If not, it's probably in the code. Hey, because remember, this stuff's all open source, so you can go look at it on the GitHub, and the main page has links to the GitHub site, so you could always look at that. But okay, great. Like, so say Jason's like, you're going to be cute. It's like, I'm going to get Nike. Let's just say, let's pick something that the first thing a lot of folks are going to say, hey, I'll get Nike. And then when Nike finds out that this is really cool and all the kids are doing it, they're going to want to buy it from me, and I'll sell it for $1 million. Right. Maybe,
which is definitely
I don't know. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Now, you have to remember too, there's no authority involved here. There's no person that says, "Oh, I see somebody trying to get Nike, and I'm not going to allow that." There is nobody. The protocol, and that's the beautiful thing about protocols, right? There's no authority. There's no company. There's no personality. There's no arbitrator. There's no, entity that lives in the United States or lives in Europe or has, falls under some jurisdictional sort of like, legal framework that dictates this stuff. If you want Nike and Nike's available, then you can get Nike. Now, that being said, it doesn't insulate you from legal challenge, right? So if I say, I'm going to get Nike and then I'm going to resell it, try to sell it to the Nike, the corporation. Of course, Nike's a Greek god too, right? So it's like, you could just say, well, hey, I like Nike, the Greek god. And that's why I chose Nike. So, the fact that you made a silly shoe company, with the same name is not my fault. Okay, great. You both have a position about who owns it legally, but, who's got trademark lawyers, right? Yeah. They've got trademark lawyers. So yeah, just because you can get something, and I think it's an important point to make, just because you can get something doesn't mean you have legal clear trademark or use of it in even an internet sort of capacity. So I'm not a lawyer, but I've dealt with enough intellectual property stuff to kind of know that these things exist and that it's just like, now, it's not just the Wild West here, right?
But I think we're moving away from that, though. So the laws, the human man-made laws, where here's our ledger, trust our ledger, here's the owners. What would you rather trust? The Bitcoin blockchain that says who are the owners, or some historical record kept by some county government or some federal government or something? It's kind of like, there's no taxes on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is... you'd pay the transaction fee. That's the tax. There's no taxes on Bitcoin, but there's human laws, right? There's taxes in our physical realm. But I do think we're moving away from that. More people are going to trust Bitcoin, and more people are going to not trust the old legacy systems. Might take a while, but I do think we're heading in that direction.
Yeah. So there is tax. It becomes an issue of the jurisdiction that you, as a citizen who are dealing with it, operate. I just want to put this on the record. It's not that it's tax-free. It's like, if I buy a Bitcoin...
There's no tax on Bitcoin.
Yes, there is.
Well, there's a human...
It's capital gains tax.
There's a man-made tax, right? But the Bitcoin protocol itself, there is no tax.
The protocol itself does not impose any tax. Has no understanding of any legal or national jurisdictional authority. Right. Yeah. So as a United States citizen, Bitcoin is considered a commodity and then falls under the CFTC rules. And just like if I went and bought a bushel of grain for $1,000 and then held onto it for a couple months and sold it for $2,000, a month later, then I have the difference between $1,000 and $2,000 is $1,000, and that's subject to short-term capital gains tax. I have to put that on my IRS filing. So
right, those are human, man-made rules, laws that change at a whim. One politician wants to make a change. Trump wants to make a change. Obama wwants to make a change. They make a change.
That's right.
The Bitcoin blockchain is a lot harder to make a change.
You're right, and not to get into the weeds of this, but I know as an example of this, to date, any size transaction in Bitcoin is subject to capital gains or loss taxes, right? However, Cynthia Lummis, who's been very active in promoting Bitcoin in the U.S. legislature, has been pushing for what they call de minimis threshold. So like if you do Bitcoin stuff, but it doesn't rise above this level of activity, then we're not going to consider it as a taxable event, which again, exactly what you said, just is a changing of the rules.
Yep.
I mean, and for instance, another thing, if you take that Bitcoin down to El Salvador, well, they kind of changed the rule a little bit, but up until recently, it's like that's legal tender currency. And legal tender is not subject to any tax. I mean, the money you use to do things and to purchase things and stuff with is not in itself taxed. So just by using Bitcoin in El Salvador frees you from tax consequences. So it's a weird kind of complicated topic. But you're right. and like the protocol itself does not impose any taxes. It only imposes fees to, incentivize the miners to put your transaction in a block. That's all there is. So anyway, is there anything else you want to add there?
No, I just think, this is going to be the way of the future. These protocols, people are going to look for ways, as you see with the governments, people can't trust the splits, all the crazy stuff going in the world. People are going to look to trust decentralized permissionless systems like Bitcoin, like Space's protocol. It all makes sense, and it's all starting to come together. I mean, what an amazing time we are right here.
Well, right. And I mean, it's not outside the bound of imagination to think that maybe at some point Bitcoin is seen globally as a legal tender currency that is just free of any taxation implications at all. So it could happen. So, again, these are human rules. If you follow the software Jason Lowery premise, he'll talk about this. These are all abstractions. It's like there's the natural law and then there's abstractions. And anyway, so let's talk a little bit about this. And so at the top level, in order to get one of these things, you have to go through a process. Now, in another episode, we're going to talk about how you set up the software that enables you to do this easily. I mean, theoretically, you could handcraft a transaction that it's exactly the right way and do this without any special software because it falls inside of what is legally defined as a transaction within Bitcoin. But there are special caveats, and it makes sense to use software. But once you have that software, you go through this process where you say, I want this name. You first can check to see if it's already been taken. Maybe I should I go jump over to that? Let me just for those that are curious. So I'm going to go to Spaces Protocol. I'm going to click on this Explorer link here. So this is the current state of what's going on auction-wise and what has happened to an extent and what's in process. So at this point, there's 3 names in auction mode. One is already past its window. We'll talk about that. And then these 2 are still waiting. But you can look here on past auctions, and you can search. So I can say, let's just say Hope. Is Hope available? Oh, it says here it's registered. So Hope is not available. Well, when is it going to expire? Expires in 296 days. So whoever owns Hope, they've got it recently, and it's not going to come up. Even if it did come up for expiration, they can always renew it. But this one's taken. So what if you really wanted it and it's already taken? There is one more option for you, right? And I'll just go back here. And that is there is an aftermarket.
Well, stay on here. Stay on here. Stay on the Explorer. Go back to the Explorer.
Okay.
Type in, what was the one we saw? Christmas. Type in Christmas. They added this. So you see how it says registered, but if it's on the marketplace, you see on the right-hand side, it says view on marketplace.
Oh, yes.
So they added that link. If it's for sale, you can click on that and it'll open up the marketplace.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that before. Yeah, so you're right. So Christmas as a top level name. So we're talking like at Christmas, would be with these names. It's registered. Somebody registered it, and they immediately put it up for resale on the marketplace. So I click on this link, and I see here that the person has put if you want this, you have to purchase it for this price. So price has gone down, so it's hard. It used to be you could just shift the decimal places. So what is this about? $250 or $200 or so? Maybe with today's prices.
I think it's $25. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 25,000 Satoshis. I think.
Hey,
I think it's $25. It's probably less now.
All right, I'm gonna pull up
$15.
this. Here's a converter that I use a lot. It's Kraken's. Let's see. So $17.31. Yeah, there you go.
It used to be $25
today. Yeah, it used to be. But the price of you already mentioned the price today, so I won't go back to it. But yeah, that's so if you want to just peruse these things, then you can go to the aftermarket site here at Marketplace at this link and just see what's available. You can sort this. We won't go into this too much, but this gives you a second chance at getting a top level name that you might want, right? All right. So I'm going to bump back to the docs.
Now, what happens if a space is registered and it's not for sale on the marketplace? How can you get that? Is there a way?
That's a good question. There is no way that I know of that to know who controls a space once it's registered and you no longer have an ability to bid on it and potentially become the owner. Once the owner is registered it, as long as they don't let it expire, then it cannot be taken away. And there is literally no way to know who owns that space. So there's no person to go to. So let's just go back to my example for Nike, right? If Nike says, hey, Space Protocol is cool, we should get Nike. Oh, it's taken. And nobody put it on the marketplace. So we don't know who, even when you put it on the marketplace, it still doesn't divulge your identity. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we're going to have to go after whoever owns, that's our, we have the license to use that. That's our trademark stuff. We've got lawyers. We're going to go after you. So who are they going to go after?
Right.
There is no way to identify who owns that unless somehow the activity that was used through the auction process was something that could be traced to like a location, and based on that location, then a person could be figured out. Mm-hmm. So, right. So I don't want to say it's completely impossible, but you would have to be pretty determined to get it. So actually, this, maybe we won't get too much into the auction because I think this is a really good topic to think about. So anything you do on Bitcoin, right? While you may not tell anybody, hey, this is my address, I'm receiving some funds, or I'm sending some funds, maybe I'm sending some funds to you, Jason, you're sending some things back to me. It's like, I'm not implicitly saying, divulging who we are. And if you look at any given transaction, maybe I could even bring up the mempool. I can see right now we're not going to get to the auction stuff too much, but that's fine. We'll save it for another day. Yeah, but I think it's important to kind of think about this.
Yeah.
So mempool.space is like a publicly mempool thing. These green blocks are the up and coming blocks. They haven't been mined yet, but it's kind of like a queue that you're waiting for your transaction. When you create a transaction and you broadcast it, then you're basically putting it over here in the green blocks somewhere. Now, where it sits in there depends on how much you told it that you were willing to pay for the fee rate. And that's this top thing. This says 0 sats per VB, stands for virtual bytes. So there's some weirdness about what is considered, how parts of the transaction get charged a little more than other. We won't get into that details, but you see here that you would have to offer at least one to get into this next block. This one is going to be mined next. Now we see here the last block, these blue blocks here are stuff that has been mined. So this is like going back in the past now. But we see here that this most recent block it says mined 2 minutes ago, and the one before that 6 minutes. And these things are supposed to be roughly 10 minutes apart. So you say, hey, wait, Andrew, that's 4 minutes. That's not even close to 10 minutes. Yes, but on average 10 minutes, because we can never predict exactly when the next block will be found. And, all the miners in the world are all competing for the next block. But we see here a lot of 33 minutes happened. So the difference between 33 minutes ago and, well, now it says 7 minutes ago. So that's like 26 minutes difference. That's a lot more than 10. So you can see it does fluctuate. Anyway, the important part is that while there's not really anything about the transaction that says, hey, this is Jason sending money to Andrew, there is things that you could determine by watching what's going on. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that say Jason, you've got a wallet, it's like on your desktop, and you don't run your own node. So when you want to broadcast it, that transaction has to go somewhere, and such that it gets picked up by the nodes that are waiting to validate the transaction and then make it available to be put in blocks. So if that IP transaction, that internet activity goes out of your machine, out your internet connectivity, and it goes to some public Bitcoin node, and the Bitcoin node sees it, puts it in thing. Now, the fact that it's gone out your ISP to that node, if somebody's watching your ISP traffic, they might be able to detect this is a Bitcoin transaction. And if somebody's watching the node, maybe it's a popular one that people tend to use. Maybe somebody's watching all the traffic coming and going, or the people running that node are keeping track of all the stuff that goes into it. Now, they could theoretically build up a list of like, hey, I keep seeing transactions, and they all keep coming from this one IP address. And where's that IP address? Well, if you know anything about network topology, a lot of times your ISP will divulge the geolocation of your IP endpoint. So if you told me your IP address or even if you just like sent me an email or something, I could look in the headers of the email, track it back to the origin server, figure out where your IP address was. Then I could go in and look that up, and your ISP probably gives me the lat long of your location of your router, and then I could probably get it down to like a city block easily. And if I know, for instance, that Jason lives like within a few doors of this IP at this location, then I can be pretty confident that Jason's the guy that was making those transactions. See what I'm saying? And this is what, there's all sorts of chainalysis and all sorts of ways of kind of, discovering, location and where activity comes from. Now that's all kind of forensic stuff, right? So what if you don't want that? It's like, I don't want anybody to know what I am doing with my Bitcoin at all. You either have to take measures like maybe you set up a VPN between you and this public server that you want to send your transactions to. And maybe that hides your IP address better. Maybe not. Maybe you use Tor routing, or you do some other way to kind of obfuscate where your IP address is. But one of the most effective ways to create just privacy about anything you're doing on the Bitcoin address is to run your own node on your own local machine. So that way, if your laptop says, okay, I'm transacting I'm putting my transaction together, I'm going to send Andrew some money, I broadcast it to my own node. And because my own node is just like participating in the Bitcoin network of nodes anyway, my transaction just gets mixed up with everybody else's that's happening at that point. All these that are getting lined up to be included. In fact, if I scroll down here, it's kind of a graphic of all the transactions that are getting assembled. and some are getting kicked out because they don't have their fee rate high enough, and others are coming in with their fee rates higher. So if they move to the right here, these are the higher fee rates. Like this one says 29.9, so that's a pretty juicy fee for that block. But over here, let's see, it says one sat per VByte. Okay, not to get too technical in here, but that's what this is kind of giving you an illustration of. So mapping this back to spaces, the best way to really do your bidding activity, if you're interested and you wanted to absolutely maintain the most secure situation, you should want to do this on a spaces system that's connected to your own node within your own network. So, does that make sense?
The importance of running your own node, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's when people that are casual Bitcoin, that they're just learning about it, they want to acquire it just to start learning more. Asking them to like run their own node is a pretty heavy lift.
Yeah.
And most people don't understand what you're doing, the implications of it, and it's another thing to kind of maintain. So there's a certain amount of like attention you have to give to it. But I think the total benefit in terms of really being as secure and private as possible is best attained when you do that. So let's just I think that's good. That actually sets us up for talking about the particular software next time. And we kind of thought about we were going to get into the bidding process, but I think there's a lot to go over there as well that we could talk for quite a while on it. For those that are anxious about learning about the auction process and what it means, let's do your homework. Come to the white paper, look at this auction design section and read through it, and that will give you a good basis for what we'll talk about next time. And I would say next time, let's go straight in and talk about the auction, why you have to wait for a day for the names to get into the auction process, what does it mean to be in the auction process, and how long you have to wait for that, and then eventually what sorts of bidding strategies and what sort of like can happen while your name that you want is in the auction process, and why does it make it fair or unfair? And we can talk about all those sort of things, I think, on the next one. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good. I think it was a good show. A lot of information, and there's a lot to learn with spaces. Very exciting. I think one of the things we touched on is Bitcoin is significantly private. If you get a name, you're running your own node. You don't have it for sale. You don't want anyone to know you have it. Well, chances are people are going to have a hard time finding out who owns what. So that just speaks to the new system where we're not going to trust humans to keep a ledger that can be manipulated and change the rules. Eminent domain, take your stuff. Catalonia.cat, take down your whole domain. We're going to trust the Bitcoin blockchain where everything's provable and you can verify it yourself. So Spaces Protocol just fits right in with that ideology.
That's right. So with that, we'll just sign off for today and encourage folks to tune in. We try to put these out once a week. We're not going to hit everyone, but let's look forward to seeing you guys next time. And we're kind of in the process of lining up some extra folks to chat with in future things. So more on that as it gets closer.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Take care.